Any update from NAV Canada on tracking? Is this an issue for commercial aviation, and are we going to start? Is NAV Canada looking more closely at different layers of airspace?
NAV Canada is being very vigilant, including NORAD, including all other government agencies, and monitoring our airspace, and they're taking action whenever.
Are there any more objects up there?
We are remaining vigilant. If there are any things, we'll take action.
What about for commercial aviation? Has there been any more warning to commercial aviation about the risk of anything up in the air possibly?
NAV Canada is in charge, and whenever there's necessary for any NOTAMs, they'll issue NOTAMs.
What can you tell us about the Russian planes that were spotted by NORAD?
I had not been briefed on that yet, so I'll talk to the Minister of Defense and see what the reports are.
Should Canadians feel safe taking a plane right now?
Canadians should always feel safe taking a plane. Our institutions are very strong. We have a rigorous process to monitor airspace, and we will do whatever it takes to keep our airspace safe. Thank you.
Minister Mendicino, are you thinking about running for mayor of Toronto?
No, I got a great daytime job and very committed to keeping Canadians safe.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do you think John Tory should stay on?
Look, Mr. Tory acknowledged a serious personal error and said that it was his intention to step away from the job to focus on his personal life with his family. I commend that statement, and I know that the people of Toronto are very, concerned with the priorities that matter to them around transit, around housing, around making sure that we keep our streets and our transit safe. As a federal government, we're going to continue to support the city as much as we possibly can on that front, building on the many initiatives that we've worked on together.
Updates on the balloons and objects?
In addition to the 2 or 3 other updates that
we've
we've been
had
getting today?
Meeting with the chief of the defense
I
staff.
understand.
There were lots of guests. Sure.
Indeed. Well, as I said, Canada has acted very swiftly and decisively in the wake of the events taking place over North American skies. We rapidly deployed NORAD over this past weekend following a very constructive call between the Prime Minister and the President of the United States. Frankly, this shows how NORAD should work and works at its best when both of our forces are coordinating as closely as they have been. And we'll continue to make sure that we keep our eyes open in the skies to deal with the situation as it comes. As we speak right now, there are recovery operations which are afoot in both the remote stretches of Yukon between Mayo and Dawson. The conditions are exceptionally difficult right now. You've got temperatures that are, as low as minus 25, or minus 30, which makes it difficult to operate it. And then on the other side of the country, you've got a recovery operation on the waters of Lake Huron, where the Coast Guard are hard at work to try and locate these objects and figure out what they are. I just assure Canadians that we're going to provide information as it becomes available, but we've got to make sure that we give the agencies that are on the ground the space and the time that they need to operate.
Can you give any specifics on the recovery? Anything been found yet? Specifics on what those things might be?
We'll provide those details as soon as they become available.
On the Lake Huron UFO, it showed up in radar in southern Alberta. Do we have any understanding now about where it was before it showed up in Alberta?
Yeah, look, questions around trajectory, exactly where the objects were taken down, where they were recovered, what the precise nature of those objects were, the characterization of their capabilities are all important questions which we want to answer as quickly as we can, but we've got to make sure that we defer to the experts who are in the field trying to figure out all that out, and we'll provide those details as they become available. Thanks very much. Merci.
Monsieur Holland, si vous permettez, le commissaire à l'éthique a réagi, a blâmé aujourd'hui votre collègue, Monsieur Fergus. Est-ce que vous êtes d'accord que ça prendrait une formation pour tous les ministres et tous les secrétaires parlementaires? Il dit clairement ils ont besoin d'un cours. Est-ce que vous êtes prêt à accéder à cette demande?
Monsieur Fergus à offrir ses excuses et c'est pas acceptable d'envoyer la lettre, mais c'est clair que dans mon comté ou dans n'importe quel comté, il y a des enjeux, il y a aussi des entreprises et c'est clair que quelqu'un veut appuyer une entreprise comme ça, mais comme secrétaire parlementaire, c'est pas convenable d'envoyer une lettre et Mr. Fergus a dit ça c'est le cas.
Êtes-vous en faveur qu'il y ait des cours, littéralement, là, des leçons là, qui soient données à tous les ministres et tous les secrétaires parlementaires? Est-ce que vous allez accéder à cette demande-là?
Je pense que c'est pas nécessaire. C'est clair que ça c'est le cas. On a une discussion entre tous les ministres et le secrétaire parlementaire que c'est le pratique et pas acceptable d'envoyer la lettre comme ça. Et je pense pense que c'est clair pour tout le monde maintenant.
Et le commissaire semble dire qu'il y a un problème, pas généralisé, mais que ça fait plusieurs fois qu'il y a des fautes comme ça. Est-ce que ça ne mérite pas donc un rappel, peut-être?
Oui, c'est normal que quand il y a une entreprise dans n'importe quel comté, que quelqu'un veut appuyer l'entreprise dans leur comté, ça c'est logique comme une députée, mais c'est clair que c'est pas acceptable pour une secrétaire parlementaire ou pour une ministre de faire ça. Et je pense que c'est clair pour tout le monde maintenant. Je pense que le rapport est vraiment clair.
Il y a eu quand même un blâme à l'endroit de M. Hussen pour quelque chose de différent. Mme Ing, à un moment donné, les trucs s'accumulent. Est-ce que ça ne mériterait pas un rappel?
Je pense que c'est important chaque jour quand on travaille de s'assurer qu'on regarde le plus grand effort dans nos travail, de maintenir le plus grand niveau d'éthique dans toutes sortes de choses qu'on peut faire. Et c'est important de regarder ça dans chaque chose qu'on fait.
Merci.
English. Do you think the ethics commissioner is recommending that all ministers and parliamentary secretaries go through ethics training after Mr. Fergus was found guilty of violating ethics rules? Do you think that this is something that should happen?
Well, I think that we all looked at the ethics commissioner's report. It's an understandable instinct that you want to support an enterprise in your riding. But it's clearly inappropriate as a parliamentary secretary, and Mr. Fergus has indicated that, to send a letter of support that it was incorrect for him to do, and he's acknowledged that. And I think we're all very clear on those rules. And I think that Canadians rightfully expect us in all things that we do to hold ourselves to the highest possible ethical standards.
Are people really clear on those rules? This is now the sixth high-profile member of the Liberal caucus who's been found guilty of violating ethics violations. Should that mandatory training go through as the commissioner is recommending?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a fair question to review all of our practices internally and to take a look at how we comport ourselves and to ensure that we're adhering to the highest ethical standards. And I think it's up to each member to do that and to ask, how do we make sure that we adhere to those standards so that we don't wind up in these circumstances. I can assure you for all of those that have apologized or have been embroiled in such circumstances that it's profoundly uncomfortable and that it's something that no member would want to find themselves in. So it's incumbent upon all of us to understand those rules very clearly.
So is that a no to mandatory training then?
No, I think we have to take a look at this. We've received the report. We constantly are evaluating our processes and how we can ensure that we adhere to the highest ethical standards. And so I think, that's something worth looking at and talking about.
Awesome. Thanks.
Okay, thanks so much.
Bonjour, Monsieur Rodriguez. Monsieur Legault, à Québec, est mécontent au sujet de la santé. Il dit qu'il y a un déséquilibre fiscal, ça règle rien. Qu'est-ce que vous répondez à ça? Est-ce que vous reconnaissez qu'il y a un déséquilibre fiscal?
Je pense que l'entente sur la santé, c'est une très bonne entente, d'une part. Et d'autre part, rappelez-vous que sur toutes les sommes investies lors de la COVID, si on prend le fédéral, le provincial, le municipal, 8 $ sur 10 proviennent du fédéral.
M. Legault dit que ça ne règle rien. Vous voyez seulement le quart des
8 $ sur 10. Donc, s'il y a un gouvernement qui s'est endetté récemment pour livrer des services à la population, c'est le gouvernement fédéral.
François Legault a interpellé le maire de New York sur le chemin Roxham parce qu'il envoie des gens par autobus. Est-ce que vous avez interpellé, vous, le maire de New York? Parce qu'il y a des appels qui se font.
Le gouvernement du Canada est en constat, en communication avec les États-Unis, évidemment. Mais je vous invite, encore une fois, à faire attention à ce débat-là. Parce que il y a des gens qui sont instrumentalisés, c'est-à-dire des gens qui souffrent, qui quittent des situations très difficiles pour venir chez nous, et le débat porte autour d'eux. Alors, je vous invite à faire très attention.
Il y a quand même une marge quand on envoie des
gens viennent contribuer.
Et sur la santé, c'est au tour de M. Legault de s'endetter.
Hi, mister. Are you going to run for mayor of Toronto? We hear you're trying to organize. Is it true?
No, I'm not organizing anything. I'm happy with my job. I love serving the people of York Southwestern, and I'm very privileged to serve in Canada.
Mr. Hussen, with regards to the migrants who are arriving at Roxham Road, the Quebec government just announced that 380 or so have been transferred to Ontario or other provinces. Is this something that happens regularly, or is this a new occurrence?
No, it happened in the past. There's a coordination among different provinces, and and it depends on what services are available at that time, and people are redirected to the services.
Do you have any numbers as to how many have been transported to different
No, I
provinces?
don't. You would have to refer to
But
the
it's
Minister of
something that's been
Immigration.
Yes.
Why is this a policy now? Why wasn't this something before?
Well, I think because it's the right thing to do. I mean, we've seen recent events, there have been reports, and I've said at the time that I found that unacceptable, that universities need to do more. And you may recall at committee, I said we would take stronger measures to make sure that we protect our research, we protect our IP, and we protect the know-how that we develop in Canadian universities. So this is just following on that, but I think it's the right thing to do. You know, we've seen a number of events, and we just need to do more. And that's, you know, people understand, and I think the message is very clear to universities, to provinces. We've instructed the granting councils, because that's something that I can direct with Minister Duclos. In conjunction with Minister Mendicino, we said we need to have more stringent rules, but at the same time, we're sending a very clear message to universities and to provinces to follow suit, to make sure that we have the best possible standards, guidelines, and direction when it comes to research security in Canada. And I think that's something that Canadians expect from us, to make sure that you know, we take strong measures, and I think this is a strong response to face the reality of today and making sure that research security in this country will have proper framework around it. So on one end, we respect the freedom of research, but at the same time, we protect the interest and our national security.
Would this mean, though, that a university that gets funding from Longwood, for example, that they be ineligible for federal funding?
Well, we'll have to see the details of it. As you know, you have to look at case by case. But I think what Canadians wanted is a framework, and I think you see the framework in the policy now. So I think it's the right thing to do, and it's going to better protect our research in Canada. Merci.
Labels on alcoholic products. Well, I think we're working through this. I think that one of the recommendations that came out of the Canadian Centre on Substance Use around standard, what is a standard drink? I think people have the right to know how many, the equivalent of a standard drink in beer or wine or spirits. And so I think, you know, if you go to the bar and you order a triple drink, you know you're getting 4.5 ounces. When you buy it at the store, you may not know how much is really in that. And so I think that we are hoping that the industry, and I met with the Beer Association today, and I think we know we've got to do better on all of that.
So you think we should be adding new labels to?
Well, I think we have to work. I think we have to work our way through. I think that I think the right to know and what's a standard drink. I think there's a consensus on that. I also think that with BPA and water bottles, that the industry decided to do it themselves because they knew that's what people wanted. And so, you know, I think there was a good conversation today with the beer industry. Thank you.
Minister, do you have time for a few questions on Canada Soccer? Obviously, both the men's and the women's teams have called for action to be taken if this labour dispute cannot be resolved. Would you be prepared to step in if that event happens?
Well, you know, it's a contractual negotiations that needs to happen between both parties, but I've already offered my help, and we're going to speak with the women's team soon, and we're expecting to have discussions with them and see how we can help.
And do you support them coming before the Heritage Committee in terms of Canada Soccer giving testimony from the leadership, hearing from them? Would that be good?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the Heritage Committee is totally independent, and they're doing extensive work on national sport organizations' governance. And if they want to ask questions to Soccer Canada, I think it's a good thing.
Are they being treated fairly, though, Minister? Are women's soccer players being treated fairly?
I'm in favor of equal treatment for both.
Does that mean equal pay?
Equal treatment.
Equal treatment.